Hi there, welcome to today's painting tutorial. Today we are going to paint a cockatiel with acrylic paints, so let's get started. I'm going to start with a size 0 round brush. Let's take some black paint and put in the pupil of the eye. Then I'm going to remove some of that paint and pick up some of this burnt umber, which is a dark brown. I'm going to go around the eye. And then I'm going to use some of this burnt sienna, which is an orangey brown color. I'm going to put that around the rim of the eye. You can come along the top as well. And then let's pick up some of this magenta. I'm going to put a little bit of the magenta around the eye as well, just to have a color variation. I'm going to come back in with more black, just to get a good shape for that eye. And then let's take some white and put a little dot in there, or a couple small dots for the highlight. And then let's use this beige color. This is a beige with a bit of a pinky undertone. And I'm going to use that to go around the outside of the eye. I'll come along the top here. And then we could add some burnt sienna along the top to create the appearance of an eyelid. Okay, so now let's work on the beak. Let's take some of the black, put a little mark here, and I didn't put that in the sketch. Also, don't forget to grab the sketch so that you can use that to paint along with me. And then let's go around this area. So this section here is not in the sketch as well, but the beak is broken down almost into 3 sections. Then we want to put this dark color in this area of the beak. Then we could go underneath as well. Well, that's still wet. I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna, start feathering some of that in. Nice warm shadow. And then I'm also going to take some of this magenta. Let's put some magenta in there as well. So it's just helping things pop and give a nice variety of color. It gives the painting a little bit more dimension. Now while that's still wet, pick up that beige and then start putting that in. We're still using this 0 round brush. It's helping us to get into these really small places and really get the control that we need. So I'm putting this beige in, and I'm going on top of some of those under layers of paint. I want this dark brown to stay intact. I'm allowing the colors to blend together. Okay, so then you can take a light color. I'm going to take some white and I'm going to put a highlight in here along the top of the beak with that white. Maybe a little bit right here as well. Don't forget that the paint is going to dry a little bit darker. Okay, so I think that looks nice. So now let's work down at the bottom for the feet. We can pick up this dark brown color first. Just going to do a little bit of outlining for the feet. And some shadows underneath. And you can notice that I'm working from dark to light. So then I'm going to take the burnt sienna, add a little bit of that in there. And then some of this magenta, this hot pink. And then while that's still wet, pick up the beige. And then put the beige on top of that color. This should give you a nice pink color. Okay, that pink is really intense. And then in the back, I'm just going to put the color that's already on the brush and move that into the back. That's going to fade into the background, so you don't want a lot of detail in that foot in the back there. Could take some light gray and put a claw on there, just fading into the back. Okay, so now let's work on each section at a time. Let's work on the head area first. So I'm going to switch brushes. Let's take a blender brush. This is about a size 1 blender brush. And I'm going to start by putting in some shadow with this gray color. And you want to think about where the shadow is going to be for the bird. So around this section of the face, underneath here, just putting it in sections where the shadow is going to be. So I added some of this light yellow because we forgot to add that. And let's start putting that in on top of the gray, blending that in. This is just a nice pastel yellow color. Come around the eye. Okay, and these areas are soft. So we're just using this nice blender brush. I'm gonna come down here. Just add some of this soft feathering. And then let's pick up some of this white color and start putting that white in. I want it pretty blended and soft. I also have some drying retarder in this paint, so that's helping it to blend easier as well. Okay, let's do this section here while we're down in this area. So I'm using that gray paint to create this nice shadow. You could add a little bit of this burnt sienna color. And then we can take some white and bring that white down here. Again, nice and soft and blended. I'm going to add more gray and then some white. Okay, so now let's work on this section, and I'm going to switch brushes. So I have a size 0 round bristle brush, and let's see if we can use that to start getting the rest of this head area done. So I'm gonna let's take this pastel yellow. I'm gonna start putting that in. This brush is great because it's gonna give us that nice texture. It's gonna help us almost create the effect of feathers. And we have this spot on the cockatiel right here. So I'm gonna use that nice light yellow. And then I have a medium yellow deep. And let's feather that in. You can do it pretty softly. You can see how much brighter this shade of yellow is. And then I'm going to pick up some of this vermilion and let it mix in with some of that yellow deep. And then just put a few little marks here. It's really bright and intense, but it has that nice mark for the cockatiel. And it should be a circular shape here. Okay, try not to overdo that section. And then you want to rinse your brush because you don't want that red in the rest of the face. Okay, so now we have these feathers here, and let's take some gray for that and put some gray underneath so that we have some shadow in there. And then we can take that pastel yellow and bring that down. And then see if you can flick the brush to create that nice feather shape. You're going right on top of that gray, so you still have the nice shadow. Bring it down here. Okay, and while that's still wet, we can add a little bit of a highlight, so we could pick up some white. It's going to mix with some of the yellow that's still on the brush. Okay, and I want white on the brush to come down this section here. Okay, and then we have this wing area. And for that, I'm going to switch back to that blender brush, that nice soft brush. I'm going to take some gray, and you can use this nice brush to create some soft little feather sections. And then while it's still wet, pick up some of the white paint and just pop those feathers in there on top of the gray. This brush is just about perfect for these feather shapes. Okay, I'm going to pick up a little more gray. I need a darker shadow right here. So what you can do is take some black and mix that with the gray. And it's a little tricky to get just the right color, but I need this shadow to be darker for where this wing is. And I can come all the way down and put this dark shadow in for these individual feathers. Okay, and then I can transfer into the lighter gray. Put some of that on top. So we have a nice transition of color. And then go into the white and put some of that white on top. Nice and soft. And we also have a little bit of the yellow in this section, so go ahead and add some of this pastel yellow into some of these wings here. If it's too intense, just come back with that white and add some of that on top. Okay, I'm going to fill in this section at the bottom. Okay, and then we have these feathers down here, these tail feathers. So we can do the same idea Pick up some gray and go around your shadow areas. And then we could add some yellow in there. And then pick up some white and feather that white in as well. And these are going to be pretty translucent in the back. You can think about your soft and hard edges. Anything in the back you want to be soft and blurred. And edges that are in the front you want to be a little bit harsher. So that's how you can create some three-dimensional depth there. Okay, and then at this point we can go back and do some highlighting. So you can take a size 0 liner brush and you can roll this brush in some white paint. And then come back and do some highlights. So maybe around the eye, you could bring that out a little bit more. You could do some little lines around the eye. You could bring out this highlight in the beak. You could bring out some of these individual feathers around the face. Just light little feather detail. You can get into that as much as you would like. And then you could highlight some of these feathers here along the wing. It's just going to help them to pop and come forward in space. Okay, and then you could also look at the feet area. You could come back in with some of this burnt sienna. Put a few lines in there. And then you could take some white paint and then put a few little marks in the feet. And in the back, you don't want that to show up as much because it's in the distance, so it's going to be a little more blurred. You can just add the detail to the front foot there. Might take some gray and put a little feather detail on this leg here. And then I'm going to switch back to this round bristle brush, pick up some white paint, then put some feathers around that leg there. Let that stand out as a bit of a highlight. Okay, I might take this bristle brush and do some highlighting with that. So maybe around this section, kind of bring back some of those lighter feather areas. Some highlights. Okay, just because that acrylic paint, as you know, dries a little bit darker. Okay, I'm going to take the 0 liner brush and then just put a few lines on these feathers down here to give a little more contrast and help them stand out a little bit more. Okay, and I think we will call this painting complete. So that is how you can paint a cockatiel with acrylic paints. I hope you give this a try. This was a request from a subscriber, so if there's anything you want me to paint next, write that below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!